I never thought I would be the kind of person to check my husband's phone. That's how these stories always start, right? I trusted him completely. We never had problems. He wasn't that kind of guy. And for 12 years, Daniel really wasn't. We met in college in Ohio. He was studying architecture. I was in nursing school. He was quiet, calm, the kind of man who fixed things without being asked. When my car broke down at 2 a.m. sophomore year, he drove 40 minutes to get me. When my mom had surgery, he spent 3 days sleeping in a hospital chair. That's the man I married. We built a life in a small suburb outside Columbus. 2 kids, a golden retriever, backyard barbecues. Nothing flashy, just stable. Or at least that's what I thought. It started with small things. Daniel began locking his phone. Not unusual, right? People change passcodes. But he never had one before. When I asked about it, he laughed and said, "Work stuff, confidential client files." He worked for a mid-sized design firm. It sounded reasonable. Then he started working late. At first it was once a week, then twice. Then I might just sleep at the office, big deadline. He stopped touching me. I don't mean dramatically. Just subtly, he would roll away in bed, kiss my forehead instead of my lips, stop reaching for my hand during movies. When I asked if something was wrong, he said I was overthinking. And that's when the gaslighting started. You've been stressed. You're imagining tension. You always do this when work gets busy. He said it calmly, rationally, like I was being emotional. And the scariest part? I started believing him. 3 months later, I found the receipt. It wasn't even dramatic. I was doing laundry, and a crumpled dry cleaning slip fell out his jacket pocket. The address wasn't near his office. It was downtown, near expensive condos. I Googled the building. Luxury apartments. Concierge. Rooftop pool. My stomach dropped. When he got home that night, I casually asked how work was going. "Busy," he said, loosening his tie. "Still working near the old office building?" "Yeah." I slid the receipt across the counter. Silence. His face changed for half a second. "Just enough. That's a client's building," he said quickly. "We're renovating one of the penthouses." I wanted to believe him. God, I wanted to believe him. But something in my chest felt wrong. So the next day, I did something I never thought I would do. I drove downtown. I parked across the street from that building at 5:30 p.m. At 6:12 p.m., Daniel walked out. He wasn't alone. She was younger, maybe late 20s, long dark hair, confident. She touched his arm when she laughed. And he looked at her the way he used to look at me. I couldn't breathe. I didn't confront him. Not yet, because something felt calculated. This wasn't random. This was organized. I hired a private investigator. I know how that sounds. Dramatic, petty, extreme. But I needed proof for my sanity. Within 2 weeks, I had it. Photos, timestamps, hotel visits, weekday lunches, weekend site visits. It wasn't just an affair. He had signed a 1-year lease in that luxury building, under her name, but he was paying. That wasn't the worst part. The worst part was the timeline. The lease started 4 months before I found the receipt. 4 months of lies. 4 months of telling me I was paranoid. 4 months of kissing our kids goodnight, and then driving to another woman's apartment. I confronted him on a Sunday. The kids were at my sister's house. I laid the photos on the dining table. He stared at them, then at me, and he didn't deny it. He sighed, like he was tired. "I didn't want to hurt you," he said. I actually laughed. "You rented her an apartment." He rubbed his face. "It just happened. It never just happens." I asked him if he loved her. He hesitated. That hesitation shattered something in me. The next part is what nobody talks about. Not the betrayal, the negotiation. Because when divorce becomes real, people change. Daniel didn't want to leave. He didn't want to lose the house, or the kids half the time, or his reputation at church. He said it was a mistake, a midlife crisis, that he'd end it. I asked if he already had. Silence. I filed for separation the next week. That's when she showed up, Not at my house. At my job. I'm a nurse at a surgical center. She walked in like she belonged there, asked for me by name. When I stepped into the hallway, she smiled. I didn't know he was still sleeping with you, she said. The words hit like a truck. Still, sleeping. With me. I felt the blood drain from my face. She pulled up her phone. Messages. Recent. Explicit. Time-stamped. He hadn't chosen. He was playing both sides. I went home shaking. When he walked through the door, I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I handed him printed screenshots. His face finally showed fear. Not guilt. Fear. Because now he knew I knew everything. The confrontation I expected never happened. Daniel didn't beg. He didn't cry. He did something worse. He tried to negotiate. Let's not ruin everything over this, he said. We can fix it. For the kids. That's when I understood something terrifying. He wasn't afraid of losing me. He was afraid of losing control. He asked me not to file yet. Said we should handle it privately. Said lawyers would make it ugly. Then I found out why. 2 days later, I got a call from the bank. There was a pending withdrawal from one of our investment accounts. A large one. Very large. I checked the account history. Over the past 4 months, there had been multiple transfers. Smaller amounts. Spread out. Hard to notice. But now that I was looking, it was obvious. He wasn't just funding an affair. He was preparing an exit. And he hadn't told her everything either. Because when I checked property records, I discovered something else. The luxury apartment wasn't under her name. It wasn't under his either. It was under an LLC, formed 6 months ago, with only one registered manager. Daniel. I didn't confront him immediately. Instead, I called a lawyer. A very good one. She told me to do one thing. Say nothing. Act normal. So I did. For 2 weeks. I smiled at dinner. Packed lunches. Kissed him goodbye. Meanwhile, my lawyer filed emergency motions to freeze our joint accounts. When Daniel tried to move another large amount of money, it bounced. That night, he came home furious. Did you do something with the accounts? I looked at him calmly. What are you talking about? The panic in his eyes was real. That's when I realized something else. He was overextended. Financially, the apartment lease, the gifts, the transfers, the secret credit cards. He wasn't planning a romantic new life. He was gambling on one. And then she found out. Apparently, Daniel had promised her he was finalizing the divorce, that he would move in permanently by the end of the month, that the house would be sold, that everything was handled. It wasn't. When the account freeze happened, her rent check bounced too. She called him. He didn't answer. So she did what angry people do. She showed up at our house. I opened the door. She looked different up close. Less confident. More desperate. He told me you were separated, she said. We are now, I replied. She laughed bitterly. He told me the house was already being sold. I stepped aside and let her see our kids' backpacks by the stairs. The family photo still on the wall. The life he had told her was over. It wasn't awkward. It was clarifying. For both of us. What neither of us knew at the time was that Daniel had made one more mistake. A big one. In his rush to create the LLC for the apartment, he had used marital funds without disclosure. That matters legally. A lot. When my lawyer uncovered the paperwork, she smiled. Judges hate this, she said. Especially in Ohio. Especially when there are kids involved. Especially when there's documented deception. During mediation, Daniel looked smaller than I had ever seen him. Not evil. Not powerful. Just exposed. The narrative he had carefully constructed for months was collapsing. And the worst part for him? Both women now knew the truth. The court process took 8 months. 8 long, draining months. There were no dramatic screaming matches. Just documents, statements, financial audits, and slow, quiet consequences. The judge ruled that the apartment, the LLC, and all associated expenses were misuse of marital assets. I was awarded a significantly larger portion of our savings, primary custody, and child support adjusted to reflect his creative accounting. The townhouse he eventually rented was half the size of our old house. I didn't feel victorious. I felt relieved. The last time I saw her was at a grocery store. 6 months after everything finalized. She was alone. No ring. No Daniel. She looked at me, hesitated, then walked over. He told me he was trapped, she said quietly. I nodded. He told me the same thing. We both almost laughed. Almost. Because here's the truth. He wasn't trapped. He was greedy. He wanted stability and excitement, security and admiration, a wife and a secret. And in the end, he lost both.